Lee, thank you so much for coming all the way from New Zealand to be on Creative Living. And I wish I could say that I could return the favor, but I doubt that I ever get to. So I'm so glad to know you and have you on the show. You're an interior designer. You have basically two online interior design businesses, and I've taken one of them, and I learned I learned so much because I wanted to keep it and put it in a folder so I can go back and reference it.
Great.
But I think the hardest thing for me, and I can walk into a home and know if I like it, if it's pleasing, I'll put it that way to me, just by the arrangement of the furniture. But that's hard for me to do. Is it hard for a lot of people?
It's very hard, and it's going to be very hard for me to explain.
Okay.
I'm more of a tactile person and doing it. But yeah, no, there's some basic things. You said about looking at things. Well, visually symmetrical furniture placements work best for us. When you have a sofa and you've got a couple of chairs and a coffee table in between. So grouping things symmetrically works really well for our eye. So often with that, we also have a focal point. So we're either looking at a fireplace or a piece of artwork, or if you've got a fantastic view, you've got your furniture placed to look at the view. So it's just thinking about how you use the space and what you want to achieve out of it, who uses it as well, and then trying to group it that way. But definitely symmetry works well for our eyes. But I suppose the biggest thing that I say about furniture placement is what not to do. So you don't.
That's important.
You don't want to create the committee meeting in your living room. So it's where you put all your furniture around the outside, and then
you have room for a dance in the middle.
Yep, there's lots of space in the middle where you're not sure what it's going to happen. Yeah. So people walk in and they sit down and they're looking around and they really don't know. They don't feel comfortable. They really just sit down and have a meeting. Sure. So trying to make your space feel intimate works really well when you've got that symmetry. Yeah.
And that, like you said, who's going to use the room? Is it the kids' room, or is it mostly for adults, or is it the family room where everybody is looking at the TV?
Yeah, that's the thing. Unfortunately, the TV has become a focal point majority of the time.
In most of the houses.
Yeah, but a lot of the time, it's also, for example, your living room is also used for other things. Like, a lot of parents like to make sure they're keeping their eye over the shoulder of their children on the computer, so they've often got a computer in their living room so they can see what's going on. So putting that away in a quiet little spot that's not going to, the traffic flow isn't going to interrupt someone doing work is something to think about. How you move around.
If you've got pets.
Yeah, if you've got doors or windows that you've got to get to. And then in some places, like in New Zealand, we get a lot of UV damage to our furniture. Oh. So we'll often move our furniture around based on the seasons because the light comes obviously at
That's a good point. Yeah, I had never thought about that.
So thinking about where you place your furniture, if you've got lovely timber furniture, you don't want it to get damaged with the UV. So we tend to move things around a little bit more. So seasonally moving your furniture. Also thinking about indoor-outdoor. Do a lot of barbecues, as you probably know. So we often have doors that open out onto a deck, and so thinking about if you're going to be using that indoor-outdoor flow, how are you going to put your furniture? So you don't want to be shuffling around a sofa and doing things just if you're carrying a whole lot of food outside. Right. So just thinking about, traffic flow is quite important, how you move around a space. So it's easy to get a piece of grid paper, draw a couple of, to scale obviously, some pieces of furniture, and then just think about how you'll get around that space, looking at, if you've got doors or windows and things like that. Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at some pictures that are good examples and maybe some that we want to avoid. Yeah. What about this one?
Well, as I said, this one, talking about traffic flow. So you can see they've tried to make sure that you can get through here, but whilst keeping a lovely open walking space, they've crammed everything in together. So we've got a little computer desk rammed right up against your sofa here, and a little lonely rug, but you can see that there's obviously quite a lot more space there. They should have turned it round and moved it and opened it up a little, maybe put the computer desk somewhere else, but it's just too clumped up together. So the next one here, a lot of homes are open plan these days, so Some people like that, some people don't. If we can actually divide up those spaces but still keep them open is a good thing.
This is like a see-through bookcase.
Exactly.
Sort of thing.
So we're talking about creating different planes. And so you can see here this is all on the same level. This here we've created a different plane that works as a divider so that you can still see through to the rest of the space, but you've created its own little space.
More intimate.
By using a floor rug you've defined that space, and you've got friends furniture. It's not a little orphan on its own. So you can use that chair to sit down and read or have a drink. I think that's one of the other things that we see a lot is that people just place a chair on its own and it just gets lost.
Doesn't invite using it all.
So it's sort of like when you're creating tablescapes or anything, you know, threes are a good thing. Yeah.
I like this because it's intimate. I mean, it's got the chairs. You don't walk into it and think, where should I sit or what should I do? No one else is here.
Exactly, and that's the thing. We talked about the orphan chair there. So this is grouping chairs in pairs, and then you're looking at the different heights. So you're thinking about how you use the space, and if you're walking through the space, it's quite a long space. So it's been broken up, and it's got chairs grouped together. So often people aren't on their own and they've got someone with them, they can sit down together and have a bit of a chat.
And talking about the UV, I mean, the plants can easily be moved, but plants are good inside the house as well.
Yeah.
And what about this one?
Well, with smaller homes these days, often we need to do a lot in one space, and I know that my kids love these little nesting tables that we've hand-me-downs from their grandmother. And so here's a good example of having a lovely coffee table, but you can pull out the furniture comes apart, you can pull out another table, you can create a space within a space. So it's actually thinking about the furniture when you purchase it and how you're going to use it and how you're going to use that space. So by having nesting tables, these are a little bit more modern than the ones that I've got and a bit more discreet. So you can see that, you know, you've got one piece of furniture, but it's multifunctional. You know? Right.
And this looks like it could easily be extremely cluttered, but I think it's kind of nice. It's all organized.
It's great. And we talk about having a focal point. This place is wonderful. It doesn't have the TV as the focal point. The TV is up here and you can see that people can view it from there. But as you walk in, the focal point is actually the record collection. So the people sitting here are focusing on that record collection. They're probably listening to some music as well. But within that space, there's another space. There's a space where you can dine. So it's just cleverly put to one side. You can see you can walk through there. And they have put the furniture around the walls essentially, which I say, you know, don't do. But in this space, it does work because they've got functional space.
Okay. I like this. You can tell what's the focal point. It's a beautiful piece of art. It's very colorful.
And you've got that atrium look with the 2 stories, which is great. So you've got a lower focal point with your fireplace and the lovely piece of art. So I talked about dividing the spaces before with that bookcase. We've got a similar thing here with your book credenza, and you see how it's really it's very well stacked.
And the colors, it brings in pops of color from the artwork.
So by placing that there, they've created a space within a space. So in behind, you'll see there's lovely sofas and chairs. Well, you can't see them that well, but this space here has created a nice intimate feeling within an open plan space. Right. So by having another piece of furniture there, you've used it as a creating another another plane. So you can use this space here for something else.
This looks like that lonely chair syndrome.
This is for orphan. So if you came to visit in this home, you'd wouldn't want to be sitting in that chair because it's like the interrogation chair.
No one would ever come over to you, probably.
Or if you're at preschool, it's the naughty chair.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think if you moved that chair back to the corner and you had a table beside it and you've got your lovely house plants there, the lamp's great, but the chair's just sitting out in the middle of nowhere.
The orphan.
So so just having a companion for that furniture works really well.
Now, what about this? It's rather busy looking to me.
Definitely, it is busy, and this is what I was talking about when you've got all your furniture in a circle. So you sort of come in here, and it's actually hard to get through because they haven't really created.
What is there? 3 feet you're supposed to have, something like that.
3 feet. And so you've got all your furniture stacked against the walls, basically, and you can see here with the window that this lovely sofa will probably get damaged from that sun. Yeah.
Now, this has lots of light coming in too.
Yeah.
This is very inviting.
And this is something I haven't talked about, which is you don't have to do what everybody else does, you know?
Think outside the square.
Think outside the square. If you love something like this little shark chair, put it in there, you know? Everything doesn't have to match, you know? These days people have different fabrics on sofas, different chair fabrics. Not everything has to match, and add your personality into it. What I also love about this one is we've got that divider like we've seen in some of the other photos, but you've got 2 tables on either side, which means that you can use the space for different things. So I think it's a really lovely design, and once again you've got your focal point with your picture. And
last but not least, this has different multiple levels as well.
Yeah, so we're creating another plane here with the sofa table and saving space in the room. So by putting the sofa table up beside the sofa, you're creating another plane that separates the space. So you've got a nice intimate space here with your fireplace, and then on the other side you can use the room for something else. And by also having these lovely flowers here, it creates some height, and people aren't feeling like they're being watched because, you know, they've got a bit of privacy. So, so that's...
Well, you certainly have done a good job explaining furniture placement. I wished it was that easy for all of us to achieve, but I think you brought out some good points maybe that'll help us get started.
Well, that's right. Nothing's going to happen. The world's not going to end if you don't get it right. So have a go. That's the biggest thing to making change is just try a different arrangement. Take some chairs out. If you've got a new chair, bring it in. Move it around. Do something that you wouldn't think that you would like before. And then what's the worst that can happen?
You can move it back the same old way if you want to. Well, thank you very much, Lee. I've enjoyed listening to your comments and suggestions. Thank you.
It's been great being here. Thank you.